So we're back with, oh, that is unfortunate. Wonder, how that happened. I had it in my car for the past while. It shouldn't really have been, exposed to anything that would have gunked it up like that. So it has been quite some time, so I'm not sure. I think this might be it. Yeah, I'm not recognizing these. Actually, I'm gonna, oh, I suppose it won't. Um, Maybe that would be better, but I'll try that next time since I've sort of been, I don't think I've ever tried it with vertical since getting the new stand. And in watching VODs, it seems to not be focusing like it used to. So I've been kind of worried or wondering if I could get better results going back to the way we used to, except also watch improving VODs. Sort of learned it doesn't broadcast it the way I thought it would, and so I think especially for maybe PC viewers, it's just not a great experience. I might just go ahead and skip her opening here, just at a glance. I'm not seeing anything stand out to me. The Wind's Tale, celebrated by Hans Christian Andersen and illustrated by Edmund Dulac. We see greedy alchemist Valdemar Day hard at work amid his beakers and glowing potions. Valdemar is of royal blood and already possesses great wealth, but he nonetheless stubbornly seeks the recipe for red gold. Surely this avarice will not be the instrument of his utter downfall and ruination. Before the advent of modern science, alchemy was regarded as an earnest scientific and philosophical pursuit, and though sometimes alchemist practices were closer to magic, the modern scientific methods, their contribution to the emergence of modern chemistry cannot be denied. The language and iconography of alchemical philosophy have both captivated and confused us for centuries. But of course, in that curious perplexity is found great inspiration for writers and artists. Sinister cults, mysterious rituals, secret knowledge, and unseen supernatural forces. When immersed in these eerie elements, you definitely know you have found yourself in the midst of some sort of occult or horror fantasy. Literary forms of English language occult fiction arose from the supernatural and heroic in folklore, and was galvanized by a modern and non-religious take on the ancient mythology of gods, devils, and heroes. During the Elizabethan age, we might have read of sorcerers, ghosts, and monsters, with a crowd favorite being that of the cautionary tale of the sorcerer, Dr. Faustus, and his pact with the devil. Charles Ricketts based this painting on a scene from the 1859 opera Faust by Charles-Francois Gounod. Faust sits in his study surrounded by symbols of learning, including books, a globe, and an astronomical chart. Weary of life and despairing, he calls upon the devil, Mephistopheles, who materializes and offers him youth and fortune in exchange for his soul. Clean up at once, said the Archbishop, was among the 28 works that Leonora Carrington exhibited with Pierre Loeb in her first one-woman show in Paris in 1952. The painting conjures a scene from Carrington's childhood regarding her aunt Leonora, the sister of her mother after whom she was named. Leonora the Younger apparently not only inherited her aunt's name, but also her aunt's interest in the mythical and utterly uncompromising personality. A Catholic nun who devoted her life to doing hard work, Aunt Leonora was also remembered by her memorable quarrels with the Archbishop. In Clean Up at Once, the Archbishop and the nun stand in the midst of a power struggle in an eerily lit dark cellar. Their eyes lock as he shouts at her, attempting to show who rules, but Aunt Leonora, staring back, is not moving. A freelance artist in the publishing industry for over 40 years, Jody A. Lee's fantasy illustrations have graced the covers of authors Mercedes Lackey, Michelle West, Kate Elliott, Mickey Zucker-Reichart, Catherine Kerr, and many others. Her style at times recalls a medieval tapestry with evocative figures intricately rendered with a high level of detail and attention to visual texture, which can make an effective contrast against the more graphic, decorative elements. Mercedes Lackey's Storm Warning, we see the devotion of a variety of different people to their different faiths, and none of those faiths is wrong, notes Ambassador Ulrich of Kars. I've always felt that before I pass judgment on any man because of the God he swore by, I would see how he comported himself with his fellows, what he did and how he treated them. If he acted with honor and compassion, the name he called upon was irreverent. Widely acknowledged as one of the greatest artists in the field of contemporary fantastic art, Peter Meselja paints in a style that resembles timeless masters of the ilk of Rembrandt, Rubens, and Frazetta. Figures, both mortal and godlike, that fairly leap from the page or canvas with their astounding sense of breathing, pulsing life. And when your favorite characters desire interaction with their gods, where do they go? Down the street to the familiar local temple, to a warm corner of their kitchen, warmed by hearth and redolent with the scent of freshly baked bread, to the blustery top of a windswept mountain. Many traditions revere certain natural places as being sacred in themselves, and while some cultures mark sacred places with temples or shrines, others leave them in their natural state, or mark them only with the simplest of structures, like a cairn or standing stone. Such spaces as seen as the sacred place are often held to be the homes of natural spirits or gods. Arthur Hacker was an English painter of the late Victorian era. His canvas beheld a spectrum of subjects from society portraiture through classical, religious, and mythological works to scenes of peasant life and landscape. An open-minded artist who embraced a variety of styles. In The Temptation of Sir Percival, a pre-Raphaelite influence is easy to see. The medieval story is painted in jeweled colors with meticulous attention to minute detail, such as the knight's costume and the naturalism of the outdoors setting. Many of the medieval versions of the story, Sir Percival is very simple and almost foolish, but even in these versions of the story, he is pure enough of heart to ultimately become the keeper of the Grail. I ended up watching because Macaw 45 uses clips from Excalibur for some of his alerts. And indeed, the Percival in that version was pretty foolish. It was ultimately enjoyable. I vaguely thought it had a somewhat negative reputation, but it's a pretty striking movie, just the presentation of the tale. In Lost Gods, talented storyteller and Gothic fantasy illustrator Gerald Brom brings us on a haunting, harrowing journey diving deep into the underworld and a pantheon of gods, angels, and demons. Murdered by an arcane horde, Chet undertakes an epic quest through the lands of Purgatory, risking eternal damnation to save his family and befriending and antagonizing lost souls, dead gods, and unruly spirits. This artwork used on the cover of Brom's novel, Lost Gods, features the stunning Sekhmet, also known as the Red Lady, a winged sphinx who, though divine, is mortal, and whose heart pumps life blood. This bizarre jumble of daydreams and fancies, in an engraving of Francois Boucher, a celebrated 18th century artist known for his Rococo style, his idyllic allegorical paintings, has a bizarre backstory as well. French author, linguist, and historian Charles Pinot Duclos wrote his parodic fairy tale Acajou et Sirphil as a result of a bet. The wager involved seeing who could write the best fairy tale based on some engravings by Boucher, which were originally intended for another story, but the book's printer had multiple unused copies of the illustrated plates, and thus the challenge came about. Charles Duclos came to the rescue, rearranging the illustrations to fit his fairy tale of love and reason, wherein we see Prince Acajou traveling to the moon to retrieve the severed head of Princess Zirphil. No wonder the fellow in the engraving looks so lost in thought. It's a lot to take in. Well, speaking to the lot to take in, that's a very cluttered composition. The whimsical Gilt Garden of the Stocklit Frieze is a series of 3 mosaics created by Austrian symbolist Gustav Klimt for a commission to the Palais Stosslet in Brussels, depicting the swirling tree of life, a standing female figure, and an embracing couple here, embellished with ceramic, gilded tiles, pearls, and marble. And radiant with meaning, the tree of life is a theological, philosophical, and mythological concept dating back thousands of years, symbolizing the interconnectedness of all things. Above and below, how splendid to lose oneself within the fantasy of the magical worlds within these golden, billowing spirals, while contemplating all the possible meanings of the work. Yeah, we're getting into kind of writing, which I'm glad I kind of skipped that opening because it looked like it was also full of it. Just these sort of glittering generalities that don't have much substance. Sergei Sergeyevich Solomko was an artist constantly keeping busy, from his masterful watercolor paintings of historical and allegorical subjects to illustrations for Russian fairy tales. His work with journals, magazines, and publishing houses. He also designed theatrical posters, created costumes for balls and performances, and collaborated with the lavish jewelry company Fabergé. In this work of aerial fantasy, Solomko muses on myth and modernity, wherein Icarus's wings hang heavy and low, but his heart leaps skyward with hope. From a lone peak, his gaze taking in an early aircraft soaring through clouds, the scene softly lit, as massive clouds tumble by in the distance. Czech painter Maximilian Perner is known for his neo-romantic style and fairy tale visions. Drawing on the themes of classical mythology and a dramatic penchant for the mordantly macabre and the sinuously mystical. In this allegorical scene of philosophical fantasy, we are treated to the uncharacteristically hopeful musings from this painter in the form of this charming trio of sentiments, love, thought, and life personified. The vivid illustrations of Gustave Doré and Dante Alighieri's imaginative vision of the afterlife have become so intertwined that even today, both aspects of the poet's travels through hell, purgatory, and paradise are spiritual experiences intrinsically connected in our imaginations. These allegorical representations of the soul's journey towards God take the form of nudes, landscapes, and elements of popular culture, are characterized by both astonishing technical skill and awe-inspiring grandeur. This illustration from Paradiso, Canto 31. In the Divine Comedy, Dante beholds the dwelling place of God, revealed in the form of a cosmic holy rose, throned by angels, the petals of which house the souls of the saintly. Referred to in terms of Art Nouveau, as well as symbolist art, Mikhail Alexandrovich Vrubel was a Russian artist who broke from academic traditions to express his artistic outlook in idiosyncratic visions that utterly defy categorization, combing decorative forms and saturated color with dramatic subjects, mystical themes, and murky melancholic moods in his paintings and drawings. Vrubel experimented to the point of mania with the expressive potential of color and line. In his latter years, the artist's fixation with religious subject matter came to influence his output, resulting in the intriguing cycle of biblical and apocryphal paintings made at the end of his life. Let the beauty we love be what we do. Contemporary artist Virgo Pereso creates complex, exuberant visions of paradise, enlightenment, and transformation embodied in the flowers, birds, and butterflies of his mystical hybrid creatures in fantastic dreamscapes, a celebration of beauty free from human destruction. The artist incorporates the beliefs of his ancestors, the Nahua people from ancient Mexico, into these extraordinary manifestations. They believe that an individual's fate was determined by the Nagual, or animal twin spirit, into which some had the power to transform themselves. In addition, he incorporates the Nahua's belief that we are born with a physical heart and face, yet we must create a deified heart to shine through our face before our features become reliable reflections of ourselves. The British answer to Art Nouveau rooted itself in the past through folk legends and beliefs. was characterized by abstract, elongated bodies, a dreamy color palette, striking geometric dashes of symmetry and modernity, and was pioneered by a group known as the Glasgow Four. Among this Glasgow art school circle of creatives was Margaret MacDonald Mackintosh, while her sister numbered among the collective as well as their eventual husbands, all stunning artists in their own right. Margaret's work was full of whimsical symbolist drama, ethereal and fairy-like. The Heart of the Rose was the final panel in a series produced for the exhibition space known as the Rose Boudoir. Encircled by briars and embellished with roses, the two-string figures lovingly embrace, enfolding between them a newborn. Scholars suggest this is the conclusion of a story about artistic union. Often called Pixie for her irresponsible spirit, Pamela Colman Smith was an artist, poet, folklorist, editor, publisher, costume, and stage designer. And if none of that immediately rings a bell, then perhaps you know her from her work in that 78-card divinatory deck of cards that's been around for ages. It was this gifted artist's bold and brilliant illustrations and allegorical imagery for the iconic Rider-Waite Tarot that even today we still associate with the mystical secrets of the tarot. And yet outrageously, it's only been in recent years that Colman has been credited for it. The artist's interest in mysticism and her personal brand of spirituality is evident in the otherworldly melancholy of The Wave, in which sorrowing figures arise from the depths of the ocean, spilling their tears back into a vast pool of grief as the tides ebb and flow. Best known for the glimmering, numinous spirit of her intricate egg tempera paintings, the delicate iconography of the contemporary artist Susan Jamison spans several media, including painting, drawing, textile-based sculpture, and installation. Abundant with ritualistic and mythological associations, and frequently channeling a sense of sacred or enchanted ideals. Susan's works are inspired by metaphysical and spiritual practices as well as answers that nature and natural cycles provide. 320 megahertz is part of her body of work. The frequency of roses centered on the holy healing energies of the flower, the practice of raising one's vibration to encompass more love. An intensely meaningful and ambitious work created by celebrated artist Alphonse Mucha in 1899. At the close of the century, Le Pater was an illustrated exploration representing the artist's spiritual revelations. Considered a masterpiece by the artist himself, in this work, brimming with mysticism and occult themes and haunting imagery, Mucha created an image for every line of the Lord's Prayer, representing his own interpretations of religion and philosophy. Belief that beauty, truth, and love were the three cornerstones of humanity. So that does bring us to the end of part 2. Which overall, I did enjoy the art and the context for the art. But overall, I felt part 2 was pretty weak overall. It really muddled together. And like the section we covered today, I really felt like just about all of it could have been at home in some of the earlier sections. So it just really felt very arbitrary in what was included in which section. 'Cause for the most part, I don't think there was much to recommend it over another. Um, but yeah, this is maybe my favorite of her 3 books so far. Um, but yeah, most likely we'll be back tomorrow and pick up the beginning of part 3.